We all know that once you start working in the underworld, you make more enemies than allies, and sometimes these enemies are not just a threat to you, but to your loved ones too. Often, we see how a drug lord's family gets involved in the crossfire. From murder to kidnapping to blackmail, they are always vulnerable because of their link to the said criminals. In today's video, we are going to talk about Tata Escobar, who was the wife of none other than Pablo Escobar, one of the most dangerous kingpin Colombia has ever seen. We'll take a look at Pablo and Tata's journey from marriage to death, and you'll discover what it's like to be a kingpin's wife. So, watch the video till the end so you don't miss out on anything. But before we get started, please be sure to subscribe to our channel if topics like this interest you. Also, press the notification bell to never miss an update. Maria Victoria Henao, now famously known as Tata Escobar, was born in 1961 to a very conservative Colombian family in Palmira. She, along with her sister and brother, grew up in a very strict environment, and coming from an upstanding and traditional family, she, as a girl, was definitely not supposed to fall in love with a man that was 11 years her senior. But disobeying her parents for the first time, that's exactly what Tata did. Tata met Pablo when she was only 12. She knew him as a neighborhood hooligan who would ride around in his flashy Vespa motorcycle around the neighborhood. She thought of him as a normal 23-year-old boy who was the son of a poor watchman, unaware of the fact that at that age, Pablo had already started his reign of criminal activities. Tata met Pablo through her brother, who was a drug trafficker working under him. Pablo immediately took a liking towards the young girl and started courting her. Tata describes her courting days as one of the fairy tales. She says Pablo would shower her with different gifts, from flowers to a yellow bicycle. He wrote and recited poems and ballads for her and took her to places where he dreamt of building schools for the poor. As a young girl, Tata says she was convinced she had found her Prince Charming because he treated her like a princess, and it wasn't long before she fell head over heels for him. Naturally, their parents didn't approve of their relationship as they all knew about his criminal activities. But Tata continued seeing Pablo despite everything, and it wasn't long before they eloped for marriage. But it wasn't always rainbows and sunshine. Even before their marriage, Tata had been subjected to Pablo's cruel behavior. Tata says that as a young girl, she didn't know much about intimacy, and when Pablo first became intimate with her, she froze in fear and didn't know what to do. He got her pregnant when she was only 14 and then forced her to have an abortion. The worst part was she didn't even know at the time that she was pregnant, but Pablo immediately knew and took her to a ramshackle clinic where an older doctor inserted several plastic tools into her womb, and upon asking, she was told that this is just a precaution that would prevent pregnancy, but it was in fact an abortion. For the next couple of days, she endured bleeding and intense pain as a result of the procedure. But despite everything, she decided to elope with Pablo because, as she says, she didn't realize until later that all these actions were actually violating and not normal. They got married in a church when Tata was 15 and Pablo was 26. After their marriage, Pablo's crime empire slowly started to take off, and he would be absent from home for a long time. This random disappearance was not uncommon to Tata, who had seen it happen during her courtship period, and Pablo had shaped her to be the perfect mute wife who asked no question and looked the other way for things that didn't concern her. Pablo's paranoia and manipulative behavior only grew as he amassed a fortune and name in the crime world. Pablo never disclosed his work to her, but over time she grew suspicious as he would disappear and then come back with a huge sum of money. She was shocked to know about his drug dealing business, but she never anticipated him to be a kingpin. In fact, for a fraction of their marriage, she believed that he was a real estate dealer. Over the years, she came to hate everything related to her husband's business, and she also started hating the person he had become. That hatred only grew when she heard rumors about Pablo's multiple affairs. Pablo was no loyal man. Even before their marriage, he would casually flirt with women, but after his marriage, he started actively having multiple affairs. One of his famous affairs was with a famous TV personality, Virginia Vallejo. Virginia was slowly gaining popularity through her new TV show when she caught Pablo's attention. Throughout their affair, she became one of his confidants and enjoyed all his luxuries with them. She was the first person to get Pablo in front of the camera, where she painted a very positive picture of him as the man of the people. Their affair lasted 5 years before it abruptly ended when Escobar found out that he wasn't her only lover. Her celebrity career ended, and she suddenly found herself being blacklisted by every important person She soon fled to America and would remain anonymous till 1996. He engaged in countless affairs like these, from anonymous women to important people, and he made little effort to hide them from his wife, so she was always aware of her husband's infidelity. Tata says that her husband was so uncaring about his affairs that he even built an apartment camouflaged not too far from their house to meet his lovers. It caused her a lot of pain and depression to watch the love of her life being so blatantly unfaithful, but she was helpless, not only for her sake, but also for her children. Throughout their marriage, the couple had 2 children, a boy and a girl. Their son, Sebastian Marroquin, was born in a year after their marriage in 1977, and their daughter, Manuela Escobar, was born 8 years later. Tata would focus all her attention on raising her children well, and she developed a different world around them, away from all her husband's crimes. This was the best she could do in her situation. She was heavily dependent on her husband, so she couldn't leave him. She feared what Colombia's most feared kingpin might do to her if she tried to leave him. She also couldn't turn to her family because both her brother and sister worked for Pablo and were very loyal to him. And she absolutely couldn't turn to the government because at that point, Pablo was a national enemy that both the US and the Colombian government were looking to execute. Being the wife of a mafia boss is anything but easy. Sure, there are materialistic luxuries that she enjoyed, but she never had peace of mind in her life. In a recent interview, Tata opened up about how she constantly lived in fear, always afraid and anxious that something might happen to her and her children because of her husband. And she wasn't wrong to worry. Throughout her life, she had endured multiple death threats, kidnapping attempts both on her and her children, terrorist attacks, and raids. But she knew they were in real trouble when she heard about her husband's involvement in the assassination of Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara in 1984. In his final years, Pablo called back Tata's brother to stay with her, but he was soon shot dead in one of the raids. By 1993, it became very clear that Pablo's days were numbered and he was constantly in hiding, away from his family. In the final days, Tata requested a meeting with her husband. She, along with her children, were blindfolded and brought to Pablo, where they would see him for the last time. In December of 1993, the officials finally cornered Pablo, and he realized there was no saving him now. He made a last call to his wife, asking her to move to a safe place under the protection of the government. The years after Pablo's death was anything but easy for Tata. The government seized all their assets and forced them to hand over any liquid assets in their name. It's said that Pablo hid a huge chunk of money for his family that is still not found, and that Tata used that money to move to Argentina with her 2 children to live a normal life. Unfortunately, being the wife of a mafia boss will forever haunt her. In 1999, she, along with her son, were roped into the charge of theft and money trafficking by the Argentina government and were released after 15 months due to no evidence. After their release, they were arrested again for drug trafficking and money laundering, but still, no proof was found against them. She says no matter where she lives, she would always be treated unfairly in this matter. She even said they want to try the ghost of Pablo Escobar because they want to prove that Argentina is combating drug trafficking. She recently released her autobiography in 2019 called My Life with Pablo, where she gives her perspective of things. She has now changed her name to Maria Isabel Santos and lives in an apartment in Argentina along with her son and Pablo's mother. What do you guys think of Tata Escobar's life? Do you sympathize with her or hold her accountable for Pablo's crime? Let us know in the comments. Also, like this video and subscribe to our channel for more.